Hello everyone and welcome to ET Fix It episode 1. My name's Eric and today we're going to be taking apart a PS5 controller to swap out the thumbsticks because this one has terrible stick drift. I actually bought 10 of these controllers that all had stick drift and I've already fixed a few of them. So we're going to get it under the overhead, take it apart, then get it under the microscope and take the thumbsticks out, put in the new Hall Effect thumbsticks that I got from AliExpress. Then we're going to get it all back together and test it out and see how it works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take it apart, and we're going to start with that by getting right under this little lip right here, prying that up. Okay, same thing over on this side. Try the smaller side here. There we go. Then you're going to run it under the edge here. Same thing on this side. Run it right under this lip. That'll pop it loose. And just get it up over the thumbsticks and pull it back towards you to clear these little tabs that stick out. So now that we got that off, we're going to go ahead and pop the buttons out. They're not too hard to pop out. Just keep your finger over them because otherwise they will go flying. Let's go ahead and put those off to the side. Now we're going to flip it over, and if you look down in here, you can actually see there's 2 screws down in here. We're going to take those out. Now once you have the screws out, you can go ahead and what I like to do is just put a little tension on this right here and get under this clip and this clip and pop those loose. Then you can do the same thing on this side, get a little tension. Now there's little clips on the side here too that you can most of the time just pull it and it'll come past them, but for some reason today it doesn't want to cooperate. So we'll get under here. Wow. There we go. And the same on this side. And it pops right out. Now that we're on the inside, as you can see, we got 2 ribbon cables here, one on this side, one on this side, that go into the board. First thing you want to do, lift up the battery, pull the battery out, put that off to the side, take this screw out right here. It's the exact same as the others, so don't worry about getting it mixed up or anything. Then what we're going to do is use our tweezers to get underneath this ribbon cable. Pull the microphone out. You don't have to take it all the way out if you don't want to. I mean, it will sometimes pop out like that, but you can stick it back in here because now that we have this screw out, we can take the whole thing out together. Then once we're down under here, as I said, we got a ribbon cable on this side. We got to pull that out. Just give it a little wiggle forward and backwards, not side to side. And same on this side. Get up under it. Pull up and wiggle forward and backwards, get that one loose. We got a ribbon cable down here. Then we got that loose there. Then we got one more ribbon cable up here, and none of these have flip latches to hold them. And once you can get a hold of the blue tab, which is kind of hard, they don't give you a whole lot to grab onto there, you can get that loose. And then once you have all the ribbon cables loose, the board actually has little clips. This one already came loose, but there's little clips on the side here that hold that in. And then once you get that up, all you have holding it now is the black and red wires for the rumble motors. So we'll go over to the soldering station and we will take care of that over there. Okay, now we got it under the microscope. We're going to have to desolder the rumble motors from the actual controller board. And in order to do that, all I'm going to do is take my tweezers and grab a hold of the wires and then just give the solder pad just a little tap with the soldering iron to pull it loose. Then I'll do the same thing with the ground wire. And now that I have those loose, I'll move over to the other side. And I will do the exact same thing on this side, but I will switch hands with the tweezers and the soldering iron just to make it a little bit easier to get them desoldered. So I'll grab a hold of the red wire and I will touch it with the soldering iron and pull it off. And then the same with the black. Now that we have those wires desoldered, we can go ahead and separate the board from the actual controller itself and get that out of the way. Then once I have the controller out of the way, I can put the board in my actual board holder just to hold it still when I'm soldering iron on it, because the thumbsticks actually stick out the bottom, so it makes it really wobbly on the table, and plus it makes it harder to pull the actual thumbsticks loose once you get them desoldered. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in the board holder, that way they're elevated off the desk a little bit. Now what I'm going to do in order to desolder these is I'm going to use a mixture of low melt solder and hot air. So what I'm going to do first is add flux to all the pads. I'm going to go ahead around all the pads. You don't need a lot, just a little bit to, I don't know why I went to that middle pad there. Those are actually for the rumble motors, so they don't actually connect to the thumbsticks. But now we got flux on all the pads. We're going to come in with the low melt solder and add low melt solder to all the pads. Okay, now that we got low melt solder on all the pads, I'm going to switch to my hot air station. I have it set at 90% airflow at 450 degrees Celsius, and even though there's plastic connectors to the left there and one right above, as long as you keep the heat focused and move it quickly, you should be able to desolder it without causing any issues with the plastic connectors. So what I'm going to do is just keep circling around here until I get all the solder loose, and then I'm going to take my tweezers and grab it from underneath and pull it out of there. So I'll just keep going around and around until all the solder is melted. Once I see all the solder start to melt, I'm going to reach underneath with my tweezers and grab a hold of it to pull the thumbstick out. That way I can pull it loose, because sometimes it'll fall right out, other times you have to give it a little help. So I'll just keep moving my hot air around so not to burn the connectors, and then I will pull it right out. And now we have the thumbstick out. Here it is right here. So this is the thumbstick, and as you can see, all of those points are connected to the thumbstick. So I'm going to take my desoldering wick, and what I'm going to do is wick out all of the holes. That way I can get ready to clean it up and get the new thumbstick installed. So let's go ahead and get the solder out of here. First we'll add some flux so that the solder flows better into the wick. And once we have all the flux on there, we can use our solder wick to pull all the solder out of the holes. I'm going to go ahead and speed up past this part because it takes a second to do it, so there's no point in you having to watch it the whole time. Okay, now that we have all the holes cleaned out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my hot air station to warm up the flux that's on the board a little bit so that I can clean it off easier. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same temperature that I had before. I'm only going to put it on there for a couple seconds just so I can get the flux melted so I can just clean it off without having to use a bunch of alcohol right away. I can just clean it with a Q-tip from the start. As you can see, when it's real soft like this, you can just take most of it off with the Q-tip. That way you don't have to use alcohol right away. Alcohol can just be there to clean up the last little bit. So now I'll get some alcohol on there in a minute. But first I want to get most of it off of there. And don't worry, all those hairs will come off of there once I use the rubbing alcohol. So the alcohol that I use is 99% IPA. For anybody wondering, you can actually get 99% IPA at Safeway. So if you need some in a hurry, try stopping by Safeway. They have 99% IPA. So we'll get this cleaned up here. And then once we have it cleaned up, we'll get ready to put the new thumbstick in. And it should be set to go. That seems to be some factory flux that's stuck on there, so we're going to go ahead and just leave that alone for now. Okay, now that we got it all cleaned up, we can slip the new thumbstick in from the bottom. I'll just lift up the board a little bit and slip it under there. Okay, got all the holes cleared out nice and good, so it went in there. So then I'm just going to go ahead and hold it with my finger while I put a little solder on the tip of my soldering iron, and I'm just going to attach a little bit of solder to one of the pins, and then I will put some flux on there and get some solder on the other pins while holding it some more. So we'll put a little solder right here. It's not going to flow very well just because there's no flux on the board, but that'll be enough just to hold it temporarily while I put flux on the board. So now I'm going to go ahead and fast forward past this part because, again, there's no need for you to have to watch it at regular speed. Okay, so now we got it all cleaned up, and that wipe that you see there is a Kimtech wipe. We got it all cleaned up now, so I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the board holder and I'm going to inspect it to make sure that it is flush with the board, which it is. It looks good, so we should have a working thumbstick. And as you can see, these holes that you see here are actually how you adjust the thumbstick if it's off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. I'll do that off camera and then we'll get it back together and see if it works. Okay, so here we are. We got it all back together. I hooked it up to the computer and used Gamepad Tester to calibrate the thumbsticks and then test them to make sure that there is no stick drift. I went ahead and played a game and it works just fine. There's no issues with stick drift when playing a shooter game or anything like that. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I got some big things coming in the future. I just purchased off eBay 4 Xbox Series X's, so we'll be doing some videos on those next. And I also have a PS5 that supposedly doesn't power on. I haven't checked it yet, so we'll pull that up in one of the videos as well. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll have some big stuff coming soon.